we are so excited, Black female landscape and nature photographers, to be able to talk with OBOZ Footwear, which stands for Outside Bozeman in Montana. And we have on this panel today, we have Christina Beatty.
Correct, yeah, good job.
We have Abigail. We have co-founder of Black female landscape and nature photographers, Keisha Holmes.
Hello.
We have Jay Christopher, who is landscape photographer, Jay Christopher Photography. Also James Tweedy, who is in Dallas.
Yes, that's right.
And we have Nicole Jackson, who is coming to us from Ohio. And Nicole is an environmental conservationist, right?
Environmental educator.
Oh, okay.
Yes, environmental educator / bird watcher. So I do nature photography and bird photography.
Awesomeness. So thank everybody for being available for this presentation here. OBOZ was founded in 2007, if I'm correct. And their footwear company is amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to first let everybody also kind of like introduce themselves and just share a little bit about each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll kick it off here. My name is Christina Beatty. We're based out of Bozeman, Montana. I'm in my lovely house right now, as you can tell, just in my office here. But I work as part of the marketing team. We actually have a division that is education and outreach, and that's what I'm a part of. So my job is to go around and teach people about, obviously, OBOZ, but more importantly, the importance about hiking footwear, the biomechanics of the foot, and how they interact with each other. So that's what I get to do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm pretty excited about that.
All right, thank you, Christina. Abigail?
Yeah, as mentioned, I'm Abigail, and I am the digital content manager at OBOZ. I'm on the team with Christina, the marketing team. And yeah, I actually met Angela through our OBOZ Truest program, which is a community of awesome super fans from all across the country and actually internationally as well, as we have some Canadian truists. And it's just this awesome community that we're able to interact with on social media and just share stories of the trail. So Angela has done an awesome job of really cultivating her community and her area, and just through her awesome storytelling and photography. So this is a really big honor, and I'm just so excited to hear more about the conversation. Thanks for letting me join.
Thank you. Keisha?
Hi, my name is Keisha Holmes, and I'm a landscape, nature, travel photographer, currently living in Virginia, and I'm glad to be here and just working with Angela as we build this community.
Thanks, Keisha. And we'll go to Nicole.
Hi, so my name is Nicole Jackson. I am currently living in Columbus, Ohio, but I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. And I actually just got into photography the beginning of this year, but I've been a bird watcher for about 10 years, a little over 10 years. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Black Birders Week and the founder of Black and National Parks Week. So I do a lot of outdoor hiking. I'm trying to do a little bit more with groups. So I think this is a great opportunity to learn more about the OBOZ, but also a little bit more about everyone else that's part of this photography group. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Nicole. And we'll have it over to James.
Hi, I'm James Tweedy, and I'm a landscape photographer. And I got an opportunity during COVID last year to really make this something that is going to be my vocation. And so I do a lot of camping, or I'm trying to do more camping. And so therefore, footwear is vital, but also the people who are providing footwear, it's important for me to know what they're all about, what they stand for. So I am really interested in finding out more about OBOZ.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Christina, who will provide us with some information and education about OBOZ footwear.
Yeah, absolutely. And to those of you on the call, feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions or want me to go further in depth. I really do like it when it's more conversational. I can definitely be, you know, the high school teacher at the front of the class, but I do like having more of a conversation more than anything. So feel free to dive in whenever you want. But we'll start a little bit about OBOZ, just so y'all are aware of what we're about. And then we'll dive into the fit of our boots, different styles that you should look for when you're going in to find a pair of boots, getting fit and measured, which is super important, and then overall foot health. And like I said, if you have any questions, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But OBOZ, like Angela said, was started back in 2007. We are based out of Bozeman, Montana. And as she said at the very start of this, OBOZ is outside Bozeman, which we love to tell people. It's just a fun fact that not a lot of people know. We are inspired by the 18 million acres of public lands that surround us, including Yellowstone National Park, and Glacier National Park, and everything in between. And that's really what inspires all of our footwear, and what we put on people's feet. So just, you know, a little bit about our fit and what I think is special for OBOZ in the footwear industry is, you know, we really like to take a look at the natural shape of the foot and accommodate to that. So back when OBOZ was getting started, John Connolly, who was our founder, he actually, and this story, I don't know, is 100% true. It's a story that's been passed down, so it's more folklore than anything, but I still like to tell it because I think it's awesome. But John Connolly would sit at the Seattle airport in the early 90s, at the gates when you didn't need a ticket to sit at the gates, and he had his foot scanner, and he would talk with people and get their information and scan their feet. And he collected thousands of points of data. And pretty much what he came to the conclusion of was most people who live in North America have a V-shaped foot. So that means narrow in the heel. And I do have some props here, which I'm really excited about. Narrow in the heel, wider in the forefoot. And that's what he based the fit of OBOZ on. So we stay true to that narrow heel. We like to lock in that heel, a sculpted midfoot. John Connolly always said that he likes his footwear to hug his feet, and then a wider forefoot. And that really lets your toes splay out. That allows for better circulation, better breathability, and overall better performance from your foot and from your shoes as well. So when you're looking at OBOZ footwear, no matter what style it is, that is what you can expect as a fit from our shoes. The nice thing is, you know, we understand that we fit probably about 70 to 80% of the North American demographic. With that being said, and the cool part about my job is we get to teach in a brand agnostic way, where some of the things that I'm going to talk to tonight can go across to other brands. So if you have a wider foot, and you don't have that traditional V-shaped foot that we typically see here in North America, then, you know, it's awesome if you go and try like a Keen or something that does fit your foot, but you're taking away from us, you know, how to get fit and the importance of measurements and the biomechanics of the foot. So we really want to dive a little bit more into that, but just to round that out, you know, the fit of OBOZ, we're looking at that V shape, narrow heel, wider forefoot. Now, you know, when we teach the biomechanics of the foot and what, you know, OBOZ does in different styles, a lot of the times when these sales associates who are selling our shoes are typically fitting people who are new to hiking. And a lot of people that are new to hiking have the number one question of, why do I need a hiking boot? And I always hear the story of, oh, the first time I went hiking or the first time I went on the backpacking trip, I was wearing a pair of tennis shoes and I thought it would be fine, but my foot got absolutely destroyed. And that in itself, you know, when people tell me that, I'm like, that is the reason why you need a hiking style of shoe. And I think the great thing that OBOZ does, and a lot of brands are doing nowadays, are creating styles of footwear that are not your traditional bulky style hiking boot. And I think that a lot of new people who get into hiking and backpacking shy away from that because they're, they kind of have that imposter syndrome where they're like, I don't do a lot of this, so why would I need such a bulky boot? And the answer is you don't need a bulky boot anymore, because there are styles out there that are more athletic, that do feel more like a tennis shoe, but that will provide more support and more protection underfoot. And that's really what you're looking for, is that protection and that support. Because when we're hiking on trails, it's not like hiking through your city where, it's really nice groomed trails. A lot of the times you're going to be on mixed terrain where there's rocks and roots, especially like places like on the AT. There's a very, very rocky trail, or Glacier National Park. There's tons of rocks out there. So when you are looking for, if it is your first pair of hiking boots, or you're wanting to improve what you already have, really pay attention to how it feels on your foot and the protection and the support that particular shoe offers you. Those are going to be things that saves you when you're out on the trail. And Angela and I are talking about this, and you're out there for 12 hours. You've been taking photographs and you've been hiking all day. By the end of the day, when you get back to your car, you don't want to be like ripping off your shoes and trying to put something else on. Even though it's still nice to have, you just don't want to be put in that situation where you're like, man, I wish these shoes were just not on my feet. I want something a little bit more comfortable. So that's kind of the overall basis of what you should be looking for. The number one step when you do go in and you're looking for your first pair of shoes, or you're looking to replace, get measured. Even if you think your shoe size. I always run into customers that say, oh, I've been a size 10 since high school. And that's great and everything. Our bodies change though. If you adjust your activity type, your foot is definitely going to change shape. Or women who go through pregnancies, we always see, or more often than not, we see foot lengthening in a different size. So every time that you go in to find a new pair of shoes, I always recommend to get measured.
That is so true. I had that, just to chime in a little bit, when I was preparing to go hiking in Peru. And, I went into REI and I'm like, I'm an 8. I want to wear an 8. That's what I wear. I'm a size 8. And they're like, okay. So they went, and we don't think, at least for me, I'm like, I'm an 8. And then you also have to think, with the shoes, the socks that you're going to have on as well. So by the end of the time that I'm in the store, I'm walking out with a 9 wide, and I'm like, I'm so glad that I went and tried it on and listened and not, and also that mentality. I don't know if you experience this a lot, or people can chime in. It's that old mentality, like, get your size and you'll just break it in. And for me, I'm like, I'm not going to be breaking in any shoes, and I'm like going to be hiking for 5 days. No.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, the great thing from OBOZ that I've experienced is if you are sized correctly, there's very minimal break-in time. With a lot of our styles, hopefully you'll be able to take them, wear them around at home for a little bit, and then go out on the trail. And I know, I'll go ahead and admit this, I am one of those people who get a brand new pair of boots and I am out there on the trail. Heck with breaking them in, I will absolutely take that risk, because I just want to use them and go out there and experience the trail and have new shoes. And I've definitely done that. I think my first pair of OBOZ that I had, I bought them, and then I went on a backpacking trip where we did about 10 miles the first day. And luckily I was sized correctly and they fit really well. And I didn't run into any problems.
So let me ask you this, Christina, when it comes to how would someone who's getting into hiking and, making the investment to get the proper shoes, what should they look towards as far as getting sized correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because I think a lot of people, when they think of getting measured, is just your full length. And I would be surprised if a lot of people knew of the other measurements and the other points on the foot that we look for to properly fit a boot or a shoe. And a lot of that has to do with your arch length. So again, when you go in, a lot of people, when they step on this magical thing, I'm sure you all have seen this before. This is called advice. When you step on it, they just look at your longest toe and they're like, all right, you're a 9. Perfect. Well, that's not necessarily the case, especially when you're looking at technical footwear. Some of the components of our footwear, especially in the inside, is our insole, which has really nice arch support. And the other component is an engineered flex zone in the boot too. A lot of people don't have proportioned feet in the sense of, if you're looking at your full length, the shape and length of your toes and the shape and length of your arch isn't necessarily proportional to what that full length comes out to. So that's why we look at what's called arch length. And arch length is found from the back of your heel here to the first metatarsal head, which is this joint right here. A lot of people get bunions right here. It's just the big joint of the big toe. This arch length, when we measure that, will give us the actual size of what we should be sizing you to. We also do look at full length, and that's just a reference point for us. A lot of people have a longer arch length than what's proportional to their foot. And when that happens, say there's a 2 size difference, say their full length is measuring at an 8, but their arch length is measuring at a 10. We don't want to just put them into a 10. We'll kind of meet in the middle of those 2 numbers. And what that's going to do is that's going to match up. And of course, I had another insole here. And of course, my display is not the correct left, right. So we'll do without that. But the insole, what we have here is when we measure to the arch length and we get that proper fit, is the arch support is going to line up properly with the shape of the arch. And the other thing it's going to do is it's going to match up the flex point of your foot in relation to the flex point of the boot. So the important aspect to take away here is hiking footwear is technical footwear. There's components in there that will work against your foot if not sized properly. So getting those correct measurements and also checking those reference points when you're in the boot is really important to find a really, really good fit. So getting measured, it's going to tell you if your foot shape has changed. We've gone over that, and we all know that our bodies change as time goes on. And if we have pregnancies and if we, change our physical activity, that's definitely going to affect our foot shape and our foot length. And then also just getting a good starting point, and that's with your arch length. The numbers that we take off of the Brandt device, I'm going to say this, is just a reference point. You might not end up with those sizes, but it's going to be a lot better than going in and trying on a dozen, shoes or boots and then, getting to the right place. At least with this will narrow it down to where you're only trying on maybe 2, at the most 3 pairs of boots to get into something that fits right and that you feel comfortable in.
As you were mentioning shoes and boots, what would be like, we're photographers, we're out, just hours on the time. We have our gear on us, we may have hiking poles, we may have tripods, might be on rocks, we might even go through a little bit of water. Yeah. And James can attest to this too, right? Yes. So when it comes to not only the sole of the foot, what would be the advantage and disadvantage as to having like the shoe as opposed to the boot?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say this whenever I get questions on, should I wear this or should I wear that? And it's really what you're comfortable with. That should always be, what makes your decision for you, is what feels best to you. And a lot of people have this common misconception that a boot or something that has a mid top to it is going to provide more ankle support to you than what a shoe will. And what's important from OBOZ is because we have an arch support or really structured insole in all of our shoes, that takes care of your ankle support. If you're immobilizing the ankle from supporting that point underneath your foot, you don't necessarily need everything around your ankle to keep it upright, right? The big benefit of having a mid-top boot over a low shoe is going to be debris and water. So you're keeping out little rocks and pebbles and dirt, and you're also helping with stream crossings, you know, as long as the water isn't going up above the top line of the boot. So common misconception, and I think that's what gets a lot of, you know, new time hikers and backpackers is like, oh, I need a boot, but it's not comfortable for me because I need that ankle support. Well, if you find something that has really good arch support, you go away from having to need that mid-top boot, and you can get away with a low top. Personally, I love low top shoes. I will always, more than 75% of the time, choose a low top shoe over a mid top, just because I'm not a huge fan of having things around my ankle. It makes me feel claustrophobic, and I know that I can be safe on the trail and not, always roll my ankle because I have that arch support already.
Okay.
What material are
Fascinating.
your shoes made out of?
Yeah, a lot of our boots are made out of leather, and specifically nubuck leather. So there's different types of leather on a spectrum. You have full grain, which is the entire hide. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have suede, which is that really, really soft, supple leather. We're kind of in the middle where we use a nubuck. It's pretty close to a full grain. It's not as thick, and we buff the tops so we're able to yield more of the hide. But yeah, a lot of our boots are going to be a nubuck leather. We do have some fully synthetic boots. The Arete line is fully synthetic, and it is actually certified vegan, which means all of the adhesives and stuff are free of animal byproducts.
And they're waterproof or water resistant?
Yeah, so we have both. All of our shoes come from the factory with a water resistant coating on them, whether or not they're waterproof or breathable. But we do have what's called B-Dry styles. B-Dry is just referencing the booty on the inside that keeps the boot completely waterproof. So if you see B-Dry next to any of our names, or if you see a B-Dry tag on the side of any of our shoes, that means it's fully waterproof. If it doesn't have that tag or call out, then it's going to be what we call a ventilated style, but it is still water resistant because it comes with that coating on the upper.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point. A lot of people have it in their heads that, okay, I'm going to be hiking, and if we get into a creek crossing, I want waterproof, and that's not necessarily the case. Especially in places where it's hot and humid, you don't want to be wearing a waterproof boot because your foot is going to over sweat the capacity of the boot. In a typical 8-hour day, not even doing physical activity, your foot can produce about 1 liter of water. We'll just let that, we'll let you guys sit on that for a little bit. Even without physical activity, your foot can produce 1 liter of water in 8 hours, which is absolutely insane. And then you add in the aspect of, okay, I'm going to be hiking. I'm definitely adding physical activity into those 8 hours, or in Angela's case, 12 hours, or however long you're going to be out there. If you're in a hot and humid environment, you're going to be wet anyways. And then if you are wet, it's going to take a few days for that boot to dry out. So really keep in mind what kind of environment you're going to be in. And then also, keep in mind too, that if you're in a hot and dry place, you definitely don't need waterproof. Please go breathable. Again, we're all going back to the vapor transfer rate of that boot and being able to keep your foot dry from the inside. Don't always get stuck on, I'm going hiking, I'm going backpacking, I need waterproof. Not necessarily the case. If you're, living someplace like Montana, Wyoming, like the Rocky Mountains or Pacific Northwest, where especially in the springtime, we have huge runoffs and we get a lot of moisture in the spring. Waterproof is necessary, and I definitely recommend that. But again, just keep in mind, what environment you're in, and what you're going to be dealing with, and if the inside of your boot does get wet, if you can dry it out. So keep those things in mind. And I think the other thing too is when you go in to get fit and you're going into looking at boots, make a best friend with a sales associate on the footwear, the footwear floor. Wow, that word really escaped me. It's
You did good.
Thanks, Abigail. Make best
You're
friends.
welcome.
Yeah, and they'll steer you in the right direction because they know that particular area and they know what's on their wall, and they can take a look at your foot shape and make sure that you're getting led in the right direction.
It's not a waste of time at all.
Yeah, definitely not.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah, Jay.
It's all about the scramble for me. So I am always kind of like, if I'm looking online and they say, okay, the last 12 feet before you get to the top of the mountain is the scramble. And I'm always like, okay, I got it. I think I can do this. How would your shoes make me feel more confident on that scramble, especially coming back down? Because I tend to kind of come down kind of heavy, or even when I'm climbing up, I want that confidence that I'm not slipping on those loose rocks. So, yeah. And the other thing that I have a question about is, I live in Texas, and Texas is huge, and we have very diverse terrain. Yeah. And I am also concerned about, do I buy one shoe? Do I buy 2 or 3 shoes, or boots, because it's so varied, and that's just in this state. So those 2 things really matter to me, that confidence when that I can say, yeah, I can do that scramble. I know there are other technical things to a scramble besides just the boots, but I do want to know kind of like, how will these boots make me feel a little bit more confident doing that scramble?
Yeah, absolutely. So great points. Texas is huge. Absolutely. Lots of varying terrain. And I can attest to that too here in Montana. I mean, we have Yellowstone, which is, really soft trails where you don't need something that's as intense. And then we have Glacier, which is like jagged rock everywhere. So yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing about OBOZ, all of our hiking styles, all of the outsoles that are on these hiking styles have multi-directional lugs, which means that we have braking lugs for going downhill and traction lugs for going uphill. So for that in itself, I think that gains confidence when you're scrambling, you're going up and down. I think I'm going to go back to the fit thing too, is if you're properly fit in some shoes, and especially with OBOZ, having that narrow heel and then having that sculpted midfoot and then having the structured arch, you're really locking your foot into place. So even if you have that little extra room in the end of the toe box, which we recommend, generally you want about a thumb's width in between the end of your toes and the toe box. If you're locked in here, you're not going to be sliding forward. So you're going to feel more confident in your shoe, and it's going to feel like it's more part of you rather than just something on your feet. And that's something that we really strive for when we make our shoes, is we want you to think about your feet like at like 0. We don't even want you to think about what's on your feet. We don't want you to think about how comfortable your feet are, because especially with photographers, you're out there for a specific reason, right? You want to capture the landscape, you want to capture the moment, and you have a hard time doing that if you're thinking about other things. So comfort, fit, that's really going to be a big part of that. But then, yeah, the multi-directional lugs. We have some styles that have more of a rounded outsole and that have lugs that go up more on the sides. So no matter what part of the boot lands on, the scree slope or whatever you might be on, you're still going to have traction.
Gotcha. Good.
And then your second question, Texas is big, and I'm sure that you travel around a lot to, capture all these different places. For me, like I am so lucky to be able to have as many shoes as I do have, and it's kind of embarrassing what I have. Some people, aren't as fortunate and have to have, one pair of shoes. And I think what I'd recommend is the comfort of your foot is key, right? That's
Right.
going to be the thing to really take in is like, if my foot is comfortable in the shoe, then no matter what terrain I'm on, I should be fine on, right? Different, like hot and humid versus dry. And then, like I talked about, softer trails versus rocky. A lot of our hiking styles can tackle all of that, which is great. And I'd, recommend if, you're going from somewhere where it's hot and dry to somewhere where it's like really humid and really wet is, and you can only have one shoe, go with a waterproof boot. Because, you will have to take it somewhere where it is wet and you do want to protect your foot, but maybe look at something that's more breathable. So that has mesh on it rather than full grain leather. Kind of meet in the middle of what your range is, and hopefully it'll cover most of what you're tackling. It's hard though, because there's so many different types of boots and shoes out there to tackle almost any type of terrain. And it's such a huge spectrum. So comfort first, and then, just trying to find something that might meet in the middle of where you're at would be a good starting point.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, just to add to that, is socks make a huge difference.
Oh,
so if you do just have one pair of hikers, it's going to be great to vary your sock density and how thick the sock is and what type of material the sock's made of based on where you're at regionally, but also what you're going to be doing in that day and how long you'll be on your feet. So I really do believe that socks can make a huge difference. And then according to your plan, you can be able to make yourself as comfortable as possible, depending on the shoes and the sock combo.
Cool.
Have you been to, sorry, this is a question for James. Have you been to Big Bend National Park?
Yes, that was one of the reasons why I was asking. I mean, I'm fine on the switchbacks going up, but that last part at the Scramble was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to fall gracefully if I come off this. Right. Yeah. It's wonderful. You'll enjoy it. There's a lot there. I don't know what would you say that
it's called a Kalima warbler, but they're very elusive. So you have to know where to look, and the hike isn't bad. I think it's about 2 hours, but there might be a variety of terrain. So I'm hoping I get a chance to find it. If not, it's fine, because it'll be my first time visiting. So either way, I'm going to enjoy myself. So I appreciate you bringing up that question.
Yeah, it's great. It's just like I was saying, it starts off almost prairie, and then it goes and it changes almost dramatically by the time you get to the top. And it matters what you're wearing.
What's a good time of year to go?
It gets hot in the summer. Okay, so spring. Spring or late spring. I mean, there's all kinds of things everywhere. I mean, so that's the other thing, I kind of like some ankle protection just because of snakes and all of that. However, I think late spring, or even, let's see, when I went in August, and it was, and when you were talking about, when we were talking about your feet sweating. I don't have so much a problem with feet sweating or moisture in the feet, but gets really hot. And it seems like the shoes I was wearing, they kind of felt like they were expanding. And I was wondering if, like OBOZ shoes, that there's some kind of resistance to that, when you start at the end of the day, it felt like my foot was, just really loose in the shoe, and I had to keep, tying them up again and all of that. But yeah, the best time of the year probably is the late spring, because when it gets hot, it gets so hot in the summer, and it's like 100 degrees, way over, not way over, but it can be challenging.
Where's Big Bend?
So with that said, what is the, I guess, the ventilation or the breathability of your shoes? They provide that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at our be dry or waterproof styles over ventilated, there is going to be quite a bit of difference between the breathability of those two categories. It is important to note what the upper material is. So if you do buy a waterproof style that is full leather on the upper, it's not going to be as breathable as if you have a waterproof style that has mesh or synthetic as the upper material. With that being said, though, our waterproof membrane is fairly breathable. When we do a comparison between our membrane, which is we'll get a little techie here. It's polyurethane versus Gore-Tex, which is Teflon. Teflon technically has 10% more pores per square inch than polyurethane. However, we're looking at that in more of an apparel aspect where it's really just the waterproof material and then a light face fabric on top of that. Whereas hiking boots, we have that waterproof membrane, but then we have foam on top of that for the structure of the boot. And then we have like a leather bike jacket on top of that. So it does really, impact the breathability. And from our perspective, if you can feel that 10% difference between our waterproof membrane and someone who uses Teflon, I'd really like to talk to you because that's pretty impressive. But with that being said, we do strive to make sure that our footwear is really breathable. And something that's really important, on our end, we can do all those steps necessary to make breathable footwear. But in the end, if you're not taking care of your boots the way that you should, it's going to really impact the breathability of a boot. So let's take, for instance, something that does have full leather for the upper that has a waterproof membrane. It's going to, brand new, perform really well. It's going to be really breathable. It's going to be able to transfer some of that or most of that water vapor to the exterior of the boot, ensuring that you don't have that sweat buildup on the inside of the boot. But as you wear it and as you put miles on your boots are going to get dirty. You're going to be in and out of water. You're going to be scraping them on rocks. And what that does, as I mentioned before, all of our footwear comes with a water resistant coating on the outside. And so as you wear them, that waterproof coating, which we call a DWR, it's durable water resistant coating. It's durable. It's not indestructible. It is going to wear off, and that definitely does affect the breathability of footwear. So if your boots are getting really dirty and you're not cleaning them, that clogs the pores. As that DWR starts to wear off, and if you're going in and out of water and that upper material soaks in the water instead of allowing it to beat up and roll off, that's completely blocking the pores of the boots. We recommend from our technical standpoint to reapply the DWR every 100 miles or at least seasonally. I think it's hard for people to gauge. I did 100 miles. I should probably, redo the DWR. I don't expect people to keep track of that and to do it every 100 miles. But if you do it at least at the beginning of the season, what that's going to do is it's going to ensure that you're taking care of the uppers. It's going to help with the longevity of your boot, meaning that it's going to stay out of the landfill for longer. And B, it's going to allow the upper to perform as it should, meaning that it's going to beat up the water, allow it to run off instead of soaking in and blocking the vapor transfer from the inside of the boot to the outside. If you go onto our website, into our FAQ section, I believe we have that information available. And if anybody has any questions, you can definitely contact us and we'll get you pointed in the right direction of what Nic Wax product you should be using for your particular boot. We really try to tell people not to use anything with wax in it, so beeswax or anything with oil in it. Wax and oil will completely coat the upper of the boot, making that breathability go down to 0. And a lot of those oils will actually degrade the adhesives in the boot, and you'll end up delaminating the outsole of the boot. So I hope that answered your question. I kind of hit on multiple points there. But the importance is A, taking care of your boots, and then B, understanding the environment that you're going to be in and making the decision of to go, with waterproof versus ventilated.
All right.
I have a question. Sorry, I'm so fascinated by the technical and the science.
I love it.
I'm
Go ahead.
literally like, I'm a systems thinker. So I'm like, this information is so fascinating to me just because there's people who like, this is their job, but then to be able to translate it in a way that people can have this information and be useful is something I'm very kind of intrigued with. So in terms of, you mentioned the FAQ on the website, how can people best utilize, I guess if you're a beginner hiker or you're not familiar with hiking boots or shoes and how to use those, what's the benefit of, I guess, the website, like to be able to have the website as a tool, as a resource, especially if someone isn't comfortable with going into like an REI and talking with an associate, at least they can get some startup information to help them gauge how to move forward with making the best choice for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because at OBOZ, we've actually put in a ton of work to revamp our website. We actually relaunched our website in March or April. I forget what, beginning of spring. Anyway, so we relaunched.
Time is weird.
Time is weird. It's been flying by for the past 2 years, and I don't know what year we're in right now. But yeah, we revamped our website and we made it to exactly that, to help people find the right shoe for the type of activity that they're doing, the kind of terrain that they're going to be on. All these questions that we're answering today is pretty much on the website. So if you go onto our website, I'm actually going to pull it up right now so I give you the very exact instructions here. You can go up to the top bar here and we have our little logo in the corner, and then it says Footwear. And the second one is called Shoe Finder. And if you go ahead and click on that, it takes you to this page where you can get started and you choose if you want men's or women's footwear. And then it goes into what kind of ventures interest you. Hitting the trail or hitting the town, we'll go ahead and hit the trail here. What type of terrain will you be on most? And it gives you dirt, mud, rock, all of that. We'll go ahead and select dirt. Just to make it easy. It asks you what kind of height do you like to look for in your footwear. So it really goes through all the questions that you would go through with a sales associate at a place like REI. But you can do it in the comfort of your own home. And our website is full of this information. You can access a lot of the information through our FAQ page as well. And I think another great resource that not a lot of people think of is our YouTube channel. We actually do have a lot of how-to videos on that particular page, how to re-waterproof your boots, how to measure yourself at home. So we actually do go through measuring your full length, measuring your arch length and what that means and how you can choose a size from that. So there's quite a few different tools that you can use to hopefully get that nice fit as if you were in a retail environment.
Yeah, I love the site. I've checked it out recently and I shouldn't check it out because it gets me in trouble.
No, I think too, another great tool that the Shoe Finder provides is that it can really equip someone with confidence to enter a retail location too. I know I've been on websites similar to our own and with different types of activities, and I've literally just like written them down on a small pad of paper to take in with me, just to make me seem like more of an expert. And so if anything, I hope that you can find your answers on the site, but also I hope it gives people confidence to be able to ask the question for themselves to the experts at the dealers too.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I brought that up, because in my mind, I'm like, there's step one, but then there's step two in terms of, and I guess this is going back to what you were saying, Christina, about it's not just about you know, if you need waterproof versus not waterproof, or if you need, I think knowing where you're going and like what you're going to be doing is part of it, but also like even being able to map out a location and say, you know what, I'm going during the spring, you know, there's going to be flat terrain versus, you know, having to scramble, like being able to know those things, even though you're not an expert, like you can take that information to the person and be like, okay, this is the list. Like they have somewhere to start versus like, I'm looking for a hiking boot and then that's it, just leaving it at that. So I think having, like you were saying, Abigail, like just a list of some sort to be able to kind of maneuver your way through the website enough to be like, you know what, I think I'm okay with, you know, understanding and visualizing those elements and then going to the place to say, hey, this is what I need in a more strategic way, I guess. So yeah, that's I love that you can build that confidence through building the information that you have and things you probably wouldn't even think to ask about.
That is so true. It's so true. Well, this has been a very enlightening and educational and motivating and inspiring and motivating to go shopping again, but I just have to stop.
Just makes you want to buy more things.
I know. I have to tell you, I fell in love with the boots. Like I said, there was like long hike and I'm like, I'm sold, you know, like I'm sold. But anyway, thank you so much, Christina and Abigail, for, you know, sharing so much of OBOZ with our photographers here. You provided a lot of information, and like we said, we're going to have this posted on our YouTube channel as well. And, you know, for people watching, please make sure that you also, you know, check out OBOZ's YouTube channel. It's a lot of information, and like silly me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I could probably look there about cleaning my boots.
Yeah, we can link them maybe too in the description.
Yeah, we're gonna provide
some random things that we brought up.
We're definitely going to provide the link. And, you know, again, for our viewers, you know, please comment, like, share, subscribe. All the information will be provided in the description. And thank you all for attending, our awesome photographers here on this call, on this Zoom. And other than that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to close this out.
Thank you both so much. This is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on here and allowing me to speak more about feet.